Let's get some analysis on this with Anton Fedyashin. He's a professor of history at American University in Washington, D.C. and specializes in Russian and Soviet history. Prof, thanks for joining us on TRT World. So the head of the Wagner group says they're still fighting in Soledar, but his soldiers are in control. How significant is this right now, especially for Russia?
Well, this is an important turning point, Yashni, because Soledar lies to the north of Bakhmut, which is the linchpin of the Ukrainian defenses in the Donbass. And this is the heaviest fortified line, which the Russians have been slowly moving through over the past 7 years. And now it looks like they're on the cusp of a breakthrough. So if Soledar falls, which it looks like by Western and by Russian and Ukrainian reports it's about to do, this is going to be an important strategic, not just a tactical, but a strategic victory, although by no means an end to the war.
With that strategic victory, what comes with that, though? What does it mean that Russia will now have access to that it didn't before, and how are they then taking the fight to Ukraine?
It means that with the fall of Soledar, the Russians will find it easier to surround Bakhmut, and that is the central point through which and from which the Ukrainians have been supplying their entire eastern defenses. And if after Soledar, the Russians manage to, several weeks later, let's say, to take Bakhmut, that means that they're beginning to roll up and completely break through the eastern defenses. And between there and the Dnieper River, which runs through the center of Ukraine, verging towards the east, there are very few defenses at which the Ukrainians will be able to hold off the Russian army.
Anton, there have also been reports over the last few hours of Russian strikes on Kharkiv. And over many weeks, we've seen intense bombardment over Ukraine with critical infrastructure being targeted. Is Moscow's military strategy to continue aerial attacks because Kyiv is still waiting for those air defense systems promised to it by its Western allies?
Yes, it looks like the Russians are essentially doing what the Western coalition did in Iraq and in Yugoslavia, which is to target the energy facilities that are not only supplying, of course, power and running the logistics for cities, but are also used in terms of defense and moving tanks and personnel in Ukraine, in the eastern part of the country, especially. 90% of the railroads run on electricity, and it looks like the Russians will not relent in this campaign because they see it as an integral part of their military move into Ukraine. I'm afraid that the Western air defense systems, first of all, there are too few of them that have been promised so far. We can confirm 2 Patriot missile batteries that have been committed to Ukraine, but those are essentially stationary air defenses. They may make a difference around parts of Kiev or other major cities, but there's the rest of the country to worry about. And second of all, we're finding out that at least the American promise of the Patriot air defense system, that won't get to Ukraine until 2024, which is a year from now. So I'm afraid the West is either going to have to convince Ukraine to start negotiating or to really supply it with a lot more weapons than it is so far.
Well, next month, or at the end of next month, rather, we'll be marking 1 year since this war started. Russia's been heavily sanctioned since then, something, though, it was already expecting. Have those sanctions had the effect the West has wanted?
Well, no, not at all. And I think the clip that you played from the Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, admitting that this is going to be a long war is direct proof that Plan A, which was to cripple the Russian economy and bring regime change in Moscow, has not worked. Plan B, which was to slow down the Russian economy to the point where the Russian government cannot bankroll the war, that also hasn't worked. And number 3, the unintended consequence of the fact that the Russians have withstood these sanctions so far, at least, has been that the European economies have been severely damaged by these sanctions, especially by the energy crisis. And when you consider the fact that it's the European governments that are bankrolling the Ukrainian military effort and the running of the Ukrainian government, this will eventually prove to be a very divisive factor within European politics itself.
Anton Fedyashin, appreciate your analysis and your time. Thank you so much.